Amazing act of courage. Black girl saves drowning stranger. Discover the surprising billionaires. Maya wiped the salty sweat from her brow, squinting against the relentless midday sun as the waves crashed against the sand. This beach cleanup, the same one she had joined for years, felt like an endless cycle, a necessary ritual. Yet the weight of her family's struggles loomed larger than the horizon. Her mother worked long hours, and every penny was stretched thin. Could picking up trash really lead to her dream of marine biology? But that day wasn't just about cleaning up. It was everything, an echo of what weighed on her if she didn't act. She spotted a figure floundering in the water. Panic surged through her. Was it a trick of the sun? A lifeguard was nowhere in sight. Instinct took over. With barely a second to consider the risk, she dashed into the surf. Waves pushed against her, pulling her back, but Maya pushed forward, her muscles straining as she reached for the man. Gasping, she pulled him to shore, his dark hair slick with ocean water and his eyes wide with fear. "Why did you do that?" he gasped, disbelief mingling with gratitude. She recognized him, Thomas Sinclair, who lived in a mansion on the far side of town, known for his secluded lifestyle. A billionaire. She stood there, heart racing, acutely aware of her ragged clothes and tangled hair, feeling like a girl from a world far removed from his. Before she fully processed it, he offered her an internship at his marine research facility. It electrified her senses, but doubts crept in like shadows. Could she truly belong in a world tailored for the elite? What would her friends think? "What does a girl like you know about marine science?" betrayed her deepest insecurities. She felt the weight of whispers already, those who would see her as an interloper, as if her skin color and upbringing could overshadow her abilities. The conflict tugged at her spirit like a relentless tide. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Returning to reality, the crisp air of the facility stung her lungs. The interns, polished and prepared, eyed her with skepticism that twisted her stomach into knots. Was it too late to quit? No, she clenched her fists. The pull of ambition danced with the need for acceptance, creating a whirlwind of fear and determination within her. What if she failed? Maya could almost hear the whispers ricocheting in her mind. The stakes felt impossibly high. With her big presentation looming, she cycled through sleepless nights and countless revisions. Yet beneath the surface of her burgeoning confidence lay the nagging concern of loyalty, a balance teetering between her community, with its undeniable struggles, and the ambition that ignited her dreams. Then the scandal broke involving Thomas, rattling her carefully built world to its core. Would she rise to defend him, the unexpected ally in a sea of betrayal? Or would she let the currents wash her aspirations away, captive to societal doubts? As the storm intensified, Maya stood precariously at the edge, tempted by the urge to sink beneath the waves. She took a deep breath, the impending tide of recognizable faces closing in, taunting her resolve. Would she find the courage to confront the swirling doubts, or slip into the depths of expectation, where reaching her dreams felt impossible? The air crackled with uncertainty as she realized life's waves were far from predictable. Maya stood before the array of monitors in the research facility, the flickering lights illuminating her frazzled expression, a mixture of anticipation and dread. It felt like a battlefield. The other interns buzzed around her while she clutched her presentation notes. Each paper felt like a weight around her neck, pulling her deeper into a well of anxiety. If she faltered, their judgment would echo in her mind long after she left the room. She had spent countless hours perfecting her slides, hoping they would showcase her capabilities, drown out the whispers of doubt. The thrill of an internship at a prestigious facility faded into the pressure of performing in front of people who had spent years honing their craft. What could she possibly bring to the table? Thoughts spiraled through her mind. Could she risk opening up about her background? Would they see her as a valuable contributor, or merely an outsider who'd stumbled into the privilege she had always been fighting against? As her time approached, she found herself at the window, watching the world outside. Waves crashed violently against the rocky cliff, mirroring the turbulence within her. That very ocean had once sparked a fire in her, but now felt like a label, an ocean of expectations she stared out upon, unsure if she would ever swim confidently in it. Her mother's weary face flashed in her mind, a reminder of the sacrifices made, and she felt the weight grow heavier. Would she return home with a sense of pride or shame for failing? "Are you ready?" A voice interrupted her thoughts, a fellow intern with an eager smile. Maya managed to nod, masking her disquiet. They fell in line before the conference room, and the atmosphere shifted. The energy was electric, an acknowledgement that everyone carried their own burdens. As she presented, her voice trembled initially, but with each passing slide, something shifted. I saw their faces begin to soften, to lighten. The skepticism dissipated, revealing intrigue.
She spoke about passionate research ideas and innovative conservation projects, drawing them into her narrative. The room quieted, her vulnerability transforming into strength. Still, doubt lingered in the back of her mind. Gaining their respect wouldn't unravel the storm surrounding Thomas. The scandal stirred whispers at every corner. Fellow interns shared rumors, buried hidden agendas behind bright smiles and polite nods. She found herself torn. How could she advocate for him without risking her position? Was her ambition worth squandering for him? Yet the image of him, struggling against the water, seared into her consciousness, igniting something deeper than concern, a sense of solidarity in a shared fight against the odds. In the days that followed, a call to action began to build within her. Maya organized small group meetings with the other interns, setting aside time to discuss their passion for marine life and conservation efforts. They shared ideas of collaboration, projects that could tug on the community's heartstrings while advocating for change. Slowly, she unwrapped her voice and took a stand. But still, the conflict of loyalty clawed at her. The day of her confrontation drew near, a private meeting with Thomas himself. Would she repeat the questions burning in her mind, questioning everything from accountability to integrity? Or would she leap to protect him, risking everything she had just begun to build? As she prepared, the realization hit her with a force greater than the tide. Her resolve solidified. It was time to confront the chaos. The storm she felt had been brewing not only within her, but around her. Each choice had led to this moment, a point of no return, and she could either drown in doubt or surface with clarity and purpose. As she took her seat in the dimly lit office, the gravity of her decision weighed upon her. Would she uphold her conviction, or would fear plunge her into silence? The moment of truth loomed on the horizon, ready to sweep her into the next chapter of her uncharted journey. Maya sat in the dimly lit office, her hands resting on her knees as if grounding herself against an invisible weight. Thomas entered, the air thick with unspoken tension. He appeared more disheveled than she remembered, his usually confident demeanor unsteady. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya felt an impulse to reassure him, but something deeper prompted her to hold her ground. This was her moment to confront not just him, but also the conflicted loyalties tearing at her conscience. "Before we dive into what's been happening," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I need to understand your perspective. What led you to handle things the way you did?" Thomas clenched his jaw, clearly struggling. "I thought I could take some risks. I thought it was necessary to get things done." His words sank into the silence, heavy as stones. Maya scrutinized him, weighing her options.
She had to confront this situation with clarity, not only for herself, but for the consequences it held for them both. But those risks have put not only your career at stake, but also the integrity of our entire project. There are rumors, and if you don't take responsibility, the fallout might affect everyone around us. "I know," he mumbled, eyes darting to the floor. "I never wanted any of this. I just thought—" "What?" she interrupted, her frustration brimming. "That pushing the boundaries gave you the right to risk everything we've worked for, to jeopardize the lives of those who trust us?" Her voice trembled slightly at the realization she was no longer just an intern, but a voice for ethical accountability. Thomas looked up, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. "You're right. I was wrong. But there's more at play here, Maya. I can't explain everything now, but I was hoping you could—" "Hope isn't a strategy," she retorted, her heart racing. "What about the guidelines we've established? What about the trust? You need to own up to this, not just for yourself, but for your team." A deep silence enveloped them, a reflection of Maya's unraveling thoughts. She understood now that this conversation was not just about Thomas, it was about her emerging as a leader willing to hold others accountable. An undercurrent of dread coursed through her. What if her stance led to an isolation she was unwilling to bear? Maya had been fighting for a voice her entire life.
With every bubbling wave of doubt that tried to drown her, she clung to her convictions like a buoy amidst a storm. If we're going to move forward, you need to be honest, not just with me, but with everyone involving this research. You're asking me to stand in your corner, but you must first take responsibility. He nodded slowly, a mixture of shame and understanding washing over his features. As Maya left the office, her heart raced with adrenaline. She had confronted a conflict that could have shifted her course forever. Doubt bubbled beneath the surface again. Was she truly prepared to advocate for a framework of ethics in such a cutthroat atmosphere? That evening, she returned to her small room in the facility, eyes fixed on her notebook. Inspiration sparked anew as she scribbled ideas for an initiative that combined transparency with advocacy, something that would not only empower her colleagues, but also protect the vulnerable communities they worked with. The idea felt vital, and her determination surged. Sleep, however, eluded her. She kept imagining where her next steps would lead. Would she be seen as a firewall fighting against corruption, or would she be dismissed as a naive intern overstepping her bounds? The conflict of those uncertainties spiraled within her as the night wore on. Each insistence on standing her ground raised the stakes, and yet her vision of implementing ethical practices felt more vital than ever.
Maya promised herself she would not remain complacent. Tomorrow would mark a turning point, and she would not shy away from the challenges ahead. But as dawn broke, she received an email notification that would shatter her newfound resolve. News of a critical decision looming over the facility. The clarity she sought, tangled with new layers of complexity and urgency. Amidst the rush of expectation and dread, she realized the true test was just beginning. As the sun streamed through the grimy window of her small room, Maya's heart raced anew at the implications of the email. The words "critical decision" echoed in her mind. What could it entail? Would it be the turning point she feared, or the chance she had been waiting for to create real change? Setting her laptop aside, she grabbed her notebook, its pages filled with her thoughts on establishing an ethics committee for the facility. The initiative could reshape how the team approached their work, especially now that trust felt so fragile. Yet the gravity of the email weighed heavily, pulling her focus away from her ambitious plans. This could be the moment where everything splintered or came together. It depended on how she approached it. Tapping her fingers against the desk, Maya fought against a rising tide of uncertainty. Was advocating for ethical transparency worth the risk it posed to her standing within the facility? She took a deep breath, recalling the moment with Thomas, his admission, his struggles. This was bigger than her. It was about integrity, for her colleagues, for the vulnerable communities they served. The desire to create a positive impact overshadowed her fears, lighting a flicker of resolve within her. Maya spent the morning crafting an action plan that included outreach to key stakeholders and potential allies. She understood the challenges ahead. Pushback was guaranteed, especially from those entrenched in the existing system. The stakes were high, and she had already burned bridges by confronting Thomas. But the thought of a path forward without taking a stand felt like accepting defeat. By lunchtime, her plan was taking shape. Gathering her notes, she made her way down the corridor toward the conference room, her pulse quickening with each step. Today, she would seek out the leadership team, presenting her vision in the hopes of garnering their support. She lingered outside the conference door, her reflection in the glass, nervous and determined, seeming like a stranger. Before she could change her mind, she nudged the door open and stepped inside, a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her. The room hushed as the senior researchers looked up from their discussions, their expressions shifting from surprise to curiosity. "Thank you for letting me in," she started, her voice steady even as her palms grew clammy. "I have a proposal regarding accountability and transparency in our work."
I believe we can strengthen the integrity of our project and the trust of the communities we engage with. A senior researcher, Dr. Chen, leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. Maya, while your passion is commendable, you must consider the realities we face. The pressures of progress often necessitate quick decisions, which sometimes involve risks. Is it wise to disrupt the flow? Maya swallowed, feeling the weight of his skepticism. With all due respect, Dr. Chen, that's exactly the mindset that has led us to jeopardize our ethics. If we allow ourselves to be swept away by urgency, we lose sight of our responsibility to the communities we serve. As her words echoed in the room, she gained momentum. I'm not suggesting that we slow down progress, but rather that we embed accountability into our daily functions. Change doesn't always have to be slow. It can be revolutionary. The response was mixed. A few nodding heads sparked a glimmer of hope, but others wore expressions of thinly veiled disdain. Has she miscalculated? She pressed on, fueled by desperation and conviction. If we establish an ethics committee, it gives us the framework we need to ensure we are transparent in our methods and considerate in our impact. It safeguards us against the misuse of trust. Just as some murmurs began to stir among her colleagues, the door swung open. Thomas stepped in, his features drawn, revealing the toll of his earlier humiliation mingled with newfound resolve. The room went silent as his gaze met Maya's. "I stand with Maya," he declared, the edges of uncertainty in his tone sharpening into something more decisive. Shock rippled through the room. Maya's heart quickened. But could she trust Thomas again? This was a pivotal moment, one that might solidify her newfound role as an advocate or plunge her back into doubt. In the midst of the chaos, Maya realized she had to control this narrative. The tension hung thick in the air, and as the leadership team exchanged glances filled with deliberation, she understood this decision would shape not just her future, but the very essence of their work. All she had to do was hold her breath and wait for them to respond. With the stakes now higher than ever, it dawned on her that every moment leading up to this one had been a preparation for a confrontation far greater than any she had faced before. And now, she would either carve out a new path or watch it slip away, either embrace her role as a rallying point for ethics or fall back into the shadow of doubt she had battled so fiercely. The moment hummed with possibilities, and uncertain of the consequences they might all face, she braced herself for the answer that would come next, one that could either uplift her vision or shatter her resolve entirely. The room pulsed with anticipation, thick enough to cut. As Maya held her breath, she locked eyes with Thomas, searching for reassurance in his expression.
He had taken a step into the light, aligning himself with her cause after so many moments of shadow and uncertainty. What did it mean now? Could she trust the ally who had once faltered? Dr. Chen's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. "I respect your passion, Maya. While an ethics committee might seem like a promising solution, there's a risk that it could create more division than unity. We are already under considerable scrutiny." "We can't afford to ignore the elephant in the room," Maya shot back, feeling her heart drum against her ribs. "Division thrives in silence. We need a way to address these issues transparently, not just brush them under the rug. That would be a greater risk than any initiative could pose." The murmurs intensified, some skeptical, but others flickering with intrigue. This was it. This moment had potential, and she had to harness it. She could feel her breath coming faster, propelling her words with urgency. Accountability is not about division, it's about ownership. If we confront our challenges head-on, we might actually gain respect from those we serve and our peers. Dr. Chan leaned forward, a calculating look on his face. "You genuinely believe that trust can be rebuilt through a committee, through oversight?" Maya nodded, a steadiness returning to her voice. "Yes. If we don't show we're willing to admit our failures and learn from them, we're no better than the issues we're trying to address. It's a proactive stance, a commitment to integrity that could bridge the growing gap of distrust." Silence enveloped the room again, tension crackling as people reflected on her words. Maya seized the moment to gauge the leadership team's reactions. A few faces softened, and surprisingly, even Dr. Chan appeared contemplative. Then Thomas interjected. "Look, I can tell you from experience that the absence of ethical governance leads to a culture where mistakes happen, often with dire consequences. No one wants to be the reason for a loss of faith. We need to take the lead before we're forced into defensiveness." The weight of his endorsement filled the air, and Maya felt a flicker of hope. It was now or never. But lurking beneath her resolve was a gnawing fear of rejection, of being dismissed yet again. "What if we trial this ethics committee?" she suggested, feeling electricity dance along her spine. "Let's propose a pilot program focused on just one aspect, like the research consent process. We monitor it and evaluate its impact. If it fails, we can adapt or abandon it, but if it succeeds, we can expand its scope." Dr. Chen's brow furrowed, one hand stroking his chin. "That's a more measured approach. It could provide valuable insights." The discussion ignited anew among her colleagues. Maya could hardly contain her excitement as her heart raced with the possibility. They could be on the brink of transformative change, a beat heart pulsing through the air, driven by her voice, her advocacy. But then there it was again, the lurking doubt. What if the committee became a facade, a way to pacify their criticism without affecting genuine change? Could she ensure it would serve its purpose? As the team exchanged views, she wrestled with a newfound realization. She had the ability to steer this initiative toward authenticity. If this was to become her legacy, she needed to establish guardrails and insist on accountability within the committee itself. Finally, the table turned back to Dr. Chen, who cleared his throat. "I think we have a direction to explore, provided we frame it carefully, but there will need to be strict criteria about how the committee will function." The hopeful energy washed over Maya, but alongside it swelled the weight of responsibility. Still, the decision wasn't final yet. Was this merely a small victory, or the first step toward meaningful transformation? Everyone turned to her, awaiting her reaction, as the realization set in that this was her moment of truth, a critical point that shaped her professional journey and tested her core beliefs. With that, Maya spoke, determination radiating from her. "Let's draft a framework together." As the ideas flowed anew, she felt exhilarated, yet aware of the mounting stakes. Would this commitment not only alter her trajectory, but could it be a beacon for others who yearned for change? Even under the pressure, her resolve began to strengthen. And then it hit her as she cogitated on the possibilities. If this committee took root, it could empower others to rise, anchoring the ethical foundations of their work. They could inspire change throughout the entire facility, but that meant she had to deliver. The meeting drew closer to a close, and with the heat of success mingling with her visceral doubts, she reflected on how far she had come. But looming over her, the question remained: could she navigate the minefield of skepticism and truly champion transformative transparency, or would her vision ultimately falter? This mission had become personal. With every heartbeat, the weight of the world settled firmly on her shoulders. The moment felt fragile. Just one misstep could unravel it all. As the leadership team poured their thoughts onto paper, Maya contemplated her next move, knowing the hardest part was yet to come. Could she muster the courage to confront those who resisted? Ultimately, she would have to engage with the dissenters lurking both inside her team and within the facility. The tension prickled in the air, and as hope mingled with uncertainty, she steeled herself for the battles ahead. The stakes were raised, and the ripple effect of her actions could stretch far wider than she dared imagine. And within that aura of possibility, she felt the familiar stir of doubt beckoning, urging her to reconsider just how far she was willing to go.
Little did she know, a formidable challenge loomed right around the corner, one that would force her to reconsider everything she thought she knew about ethics, responsibility, and the genuine meanings of trust. Maya's mind raced as the meeting concluded, the palpable energy of potential hanging in the air like a low hum. She was filled with both elation and trepidation, knowing she had sparked movement, but also realizing the steep path ahead. The challenge of ensuring the ethics committee would not only exist on paper, but truly function as a force for accountability sat heavy on her shoulders. As she made her way out of the meeting room, her heart sank at the dismissive expressions on some faces. She could sense the skepticism lingering among colleagues who had grown disillusioned by previous initiatives that had turned into empty gestures. How could she protect this new idea against the cynicism that had become all too familiar? She understood that winning their trust would require more than just rhetoric. It needed tangible action and proof of her commitment. Arriving at her desk, she pulled out her notes and stared at the details of the proposed ethics committee. Concrete goals and measurable outcomes suddenly felt daunting, yet these elements were exactly what she needed to create a framework, one that could stand up to scrutiny and resonate with those who doubt it. She took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment to reflect on the stakes of this endeavor. This could be the defining moment in her career, or yet another false start. Digging deep, Maya recognized that this moment was not solely about asserting her voice. It was about transforming a fragmented culture into one rooted in trust and integrity. The days that followed were a frenzy of preparation. In drafting the proposal, she engaged colleagues for their input, emphasizing a collaborative approach that would foster ownership among the team. Each day, she found herself growing more adept at navigating the delicate balance of leadership, a skill she had known she needed, but had never experienced to this degree. The more she immersed herself in the intricacies of ethical governance, the more comfortable she became confronting the doubts that had once haunted her. But just as energy surged from her work, so too did friction arise. In a subsequent department meeting, she faced resistance head-on when Emma, a senior associate with notable clout, emerged as a vocal critic. "This seems less about ethics and more about appeasing a public that doesn't trust us," Emma asserted, crossing her arms. "Is it really worth the time and resources?" Maya felt the heat rise within her, a mix of frustration and fear. Emma's cutting assessment echoed the doubt that whispered insistently in her mind. But rather than retreating, Maya stood firm. We need to take accountability seriously, Emma. We can't let fear shape our choices. It's about building bridges, not walls.
If we don't change our approach now, we risk losing our integrity altogether. The room fell silent, but Maya held her ground, determined to shift the tide. This moment was a lesson in resilience. It was not merely a defense of her proposal, but a testament to her burgeoning strength as a leader. It dawned on her that she was growing accustomed to discomfort, and that confronting dissent was crucial to her evolution. Yet, she worried about how much longer she could keep her footing. Was her newfound voice authoritative or merely assertive? As the tension seeped into her bones, she realized that effective leadership also meant embracing vulnerability. It was a double-edged sword that cut deep, and she was learning how to wield it. Before long, the meeting concluded, and as her colleagues filed out, a flicker of admiration emerged from a few, though some still cast doubtful glances in her direction. Maya knew she had to amplify this momentum, not for herself, but for the cause she believed in. That night, she penned her thoughts into her journal, reflecting on the delicate position she found herself in, determined to advocate for her ethical vision, yet mindful of the personal stakes involved. In the quiet hours of that evening, she resolved to hold a workshop, one that would invite her peers to voice their concerns, discuss their ideas, and contribute solutions to potential roadblocks. It was a risk, but one she believed necessary. This was about creating a space for dialogue, fostering trust through transparency. Yet little did she realize just how contentious this initiative would become. Even as she prepared the workshop, shadows of adversarians stirred in the background, people who thrived on maintaining the status quo, unwilling to risk their comfort for the sake of change. The gears of skepticism were already in motion, ready to challenge her every move. As she strategized for the event, outlining potential questions and topics for discussion, Maya felt the gnawing tension resurface within her thoughts. Would they rally together, or would the dissenters dominate the conversation? With the time for action drawing near, she steeled herself, knowing that her moment to confront everything she had learned, about herself and about ethics, was fast approaching. Determined yet apprehensive, she glimpsed the path ahead shrouded in complexity. Was she prepared to face the opposition that might rise from within her own ranks? The gravity of that challenge pushed back against her growing resolve, leaving her on the cusp of discovery, awaiting the answers that would define the true nature of her leadership. Maya worked late into the night, fueled by determination and a pinch of anxiety. The workshop loomed ahead like an approaching storm, its potential either to unite or to shatter her carefully laid plans. She lay awake on the couch, surrounded by printed materials, her mind a tempest of possibilities. Each potential scenario she envisioned further strained her resolve. What if no one showed up? Or worse, what if they showed up only to tear her vision apart? By morning, the workshop space was an improvement to the drab surroundings of the office. The seating arrangement was intimate, encouraging conversation rather than confrontation. As she adjusted chairs and flipped through her notes, she caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the glass. There it was, a fleeting recognition of the woman she was becoming, resilient, assertive, and surprisingly capable. But with that realization came an unsettling awareness of her vulnerability. As participants filed into the room, she greeted each of them with a smile, even as butterflies churned in her stomach. Emma lingered at the entrance, casting an assessing glance around. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's presence was a harbinger for a potential ambush. Still, she reminded herself to stay grounded. Leadership wasn't about avoiding conflict, but navigating through it. The workshop commenced with her carefully crafted introduction. She spoke from the heart, her voice steady but earnest. "We stand at a crucial junction," she began, "where it's not enough to just claim we uphold ethical standards. We must actively demonstrate them." The initial response was optimistic, with a few colleagues nodding and even interjecting ideas. Encouraged, Maya plunged into discussions that prompted reflective dialogue. Questions flowed, concerns were voiced, and for a moment she felt the collective energy shift in her favor. But the momentum shifted when Emma raised her hand. "Let's take a moment to address something critical," she declared. The room fell silent, a collective breath held as they turned to face her. "Are we really ready to change? I doubt that ethics can withstand the pressures of our actual work environment." Maya felt the weight of Emma's words. Her bubble of optimism began to deflate. Emma's lack of faith rattled others, drawing expressions of concern on their faces. Fear rippled through the group, transforming what had begun as an open dialogue into a discussion fraught with doubt.
Maya took a pause, recognizing that this was a pivotal moment, not only for the workshop, but for her own growth. Could she reinforce the conversation's momentum rather than let it stagnate? Drawing upon the vast pool of knowledge she had amassed, she confronted Emma thoughtfully. Change isn't born from a lack of faith. It's forged from commitment to better outcomes and practices. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Emma leaned forward, crossing her arms. But what if this is just another talk without real impact? It takes courage to stand behind a proposal against all odds, and I don't see that courage here. Maya felt the sting of doubt creeping in again, but resisted. She had prepared for this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it.
Perhaps today we can create that courage together. The tension shifted slightly, but Maya could sense people still teetering on the edge of skepticism. Drawing deep from her reserves, she laid out tangible steps. Let's brainstorm actionable items we can commit to implementing, demonstrating accountability in real time. As they split into small groups to brainstorm, Maya focused on maintaining an open atmosphere, inviting dissent, while also showing her willingness to rethink her strategy. While some conversations thrived, others hovered in murky waters, tangled in doubt. Maya moved among the groups, nudging discussions along, acting as an anchor through the turbulence. There was a shift, however subtle. The participants began to engage more earnestly, using her consolidation of ideas as a framework for their commitment, and few began to express a glimmer of hope. But in the back of her mind, the thought nagged that Emma's challenge had not been fully addressed. What if Emma was simply reflecting the fears held by many? That realization loomed like a specter, threatening to undermine all of her progress. The workshop concluded, filled with an awkward mix of satisfaction and unassuredness. Maya received a flurry of thanks and encouraging remarks, but as she glanced at Emma talking to a couple of colleagues, a chilling realization hit her. Unwavering commitment to her vision was now at stake. Was her ethical campaign rooted in a strong foundation, or merely a facade against doubt? The haunting question lingered as she packed up her materials, her determination unresolved, yet burgeoning. What if this wasn't just about ethics anymore? What if it also turned into a personal vendetta for Maya? The crossroads of her vision and her aspirations flashed before her eyes, setting the stage for further struggle. She could sense the winds of change stirring, but at what personal cost? The next challenge awaited, and she was ready for the phantoms that loomed ahead. Maya spent the following days replaying the workshop in her mind. Each recollection brought a mix of pride and dread. While the palpable energy during the small group discussions had hinted at a breakthrough, Emma's slicing skepticism stood as a warning. What had begun as a burgeoning belief in ethical change now felt more like a high-stakes gamble. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she returned home exhausted yet restless. The urban landscape outside her window buzzed with life, a stark contrast to the stillness that cloaked her apartment. Maya sank into her couch, but sleep eluded her. Her mind raced through the conversation she'd had, searching for clarity, trying to distance herself from the crippling weight of doubt that Emma had unleashed. Determined to confront her fears, Maya decided to lay out a plan. She grabbed a notebook, its pages crisp and empty, waiting for her thoughts to spill forth. First, she reflected on her motivations.
What drove her to advocate for ethical practices? The answers sprawled in front of her: integrity, responsibility, the desire to change the narrative. But was that enough to tackle the skepticism she faced? Maya's fingers worked feverishly, jotting down a list of tangible next steps. She needed to reconnect with her colleagues, not through grand speeches or ambitious proposals, but through grassroots engagement. Holding individual conversations, she could address concerns, dispel doubts, and inspire the commitment she sought. This method required courage, and she felt a surge of resolve, but a nagging thought refused to subside. What if her efforts were still met with resistance? Emma's voice echoed in her head, questioning their ability to enact change. Would her efforts be nothing more than a smokescreen if no one truly bought into the vision she held dear? With the dawn of another day, Maya took her plan and turned it into action. She reached out to colleagues for one-on-one meetings, inviting them into her world, the world of accountability and ethical practice. Each meeting posed its challenges as she navigated questions, hesitations, and scrunched brows. But she listened attentively, showing genuine care for their fears. The initial feeling of isolation she experienced began to dissipate. In vulnerable exchanges, she found moments of connection that ignited sparks of hope. Yet the presence of doubt loomed closer. She frequently encountered Emma in passing, and their brief exchanges became tense, charged with unspoken conflict.
Maya wondered if her determination would resonate, or if it would only serve to stoke the embers of doubt that Emma had stoked. One morning, she stumbled upon Emma in the break room. Gathering her resolve, she approached. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady despite the swirl of anxiety in her stomach. Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "What's on your mind?" "I want to understand your perspective more deeply. I think you have valid concerns, and I respect them, but I also believe we can work through this together." Maya's heart thudded with urgency. She was inching closer to a face-off that had felt inevitable since the workshop. Emma leaned back, surveying Maya with a calculating glance. "Why do you care so much?" The question struck Maya like a physical force. "Because I believe in the potential we have to create something meaningful. It matters. Our integrity matters." The tension grew thicker, but it gave way to something unexpected. Emma didn't dismiss her. Instead, there was a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. "You think integrity can withstand the daily grind? It's naive to assume that merely wanting to change will do the trick." Maya inhaled sharply, her own doubts rising as she gazed into Emma's challenging gaze. "I don't think it's naive. I think change requires constant effort and the willingness to be uncomfortable. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones."
The words hung in the air, the challenge creating an atmosphere thick with possibility. In that moment, Maya felt a glimpse of the resolve she would need to keep pushing her ideas forward, a taste of the courage that would redefine her narrative. As they parted ways, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that things were either shifting or spiraling. This interaction was just a prelude to what lay ahead. The groundwork she had laid could crumble or solidify, depending on how she played her cards next. She understood that her journey was far from over. The challenge that loomed was clearer than ever, a confrontation with fear, doubt, and perhaps her own vulnerabilities that could either bind her or free her completely. Maya felt a tremor of anticipation. Just as she was settling on a plan, fate nudged her in a new direction. An email alert on her phone drew her attention, and as she read the sender's name, realization crashed over her. An invitation to present her vision to the higher-ups was awaiting her response. Was this her chance to prove herself, or would it only bring forth the very doubts she fought against? Determined to embrace whatever lay ahead, Maya readied herself for yet another unpredictable turn in her quest for ethical transformation, teetering on the edge of revelation and confrontation. Maya stared at the email on her screen, a whirlpool of emotions spiraling within her. The subject line pulsed with urgency, invitation to present. The words felt like a double-edged sword, cutting through her resolve while simultaneously igniting a flicker of hope. Would this be the opportunity she had been waiting for, or merely another avenue for her detractors to showcase their skepticism? She slowly typed a response, hesitant yet resolute. Confirming her attendance, she felt the weight of expectation pressing down like a thick fog. Preparing for this presentation took on a life of its own, becoming not just a task, but a transformation of herself, a performance that might elevate her purpose against the tide of ennui and doubt. Maya set aside her regular tasks, creating a bubble around her preparations. She scattered notes across her workspace, sketches of concepts that represented her vision for an ethical framework. Each line she drew conjured the stories that shaped her beliefs, kindling echoes of her vulnerable engagements with colleagues. It was in those exchanges that she discovered her hidden capacity for empathy, a potent tool that could fortify her arguments. The presentation was only days away, but the closer it approached, the more Maya questioned her readiness. Each moment spent rehearsing in front of the mirror revealed a duality in her character: the passionate advocate committed to ethical transformation and the anxious employee plagued by self-doubt. Each time she spoke her ideas aloud, words flickered, sometimes strong and other times faltering, mirroring the fluctuating tides of her resolve.
Emma's skepticism lingered on the fringes of her mind, a stark reminder of the risks entwined with daring to propose change in an environment steeped in tradition. She imagined Emma's dismissive smirk, predicting the barbs that might pierce her arguments. Could she withstand the tension they would create? Would her belief in integrity withstand the scrutiny of both management and her colleagues? Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Maya turned to the stories around her. She interviewed peers, seeking their perspectives on ethical practices and accountability. With each conversation, she nurtured the connections she had built over the previous weeks, allowing genuine input to flow into her ideas. Their honesty brought depth to her presentation, transforming abstract concepts into something tangible. She realized she was not merely voicing her thoughts, but amplifying collective aspirations.
The day before the presentation, Maya felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through her veins. She reviewed her materials one last time, reminding herself of the faces of her colleagues who had begun to share her vision. Each image inspired a sense of belonging that counteracted the isolating whispers of doubt. That night, sleep was elusive, but as the cool glow of dawn tapped on her window, Maya pulled herself from the trenches of insecurity. This was no longer just about her notion of ethical practices. It was a platform to illuminate the importance of integrity amidst the chaos of daily operations. She flipped through her notes, absorbing the narratives, the genuine interactions she had fostered. Arriving at the office, adrenaline coursed through her. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, infused by the possibility of what she might present. As she took her place before the higher-ups, she felt an unexpected calm settle over her. This was a moment not just for her, but for everyone who had lent her their stories. As she began her presentation, weaving the threads of her reflections and the insights of her colleagues together, she could sense the cautious curiosity of the audience. But deep within her, a specter loomed. What if Emma had planted seeds of doubt that would spring forth in her defense? Maya pressed on, her voice steady, her core fortified by purpose. But just as she reached the crux of her argument, the door opened, and in walked Emma, a storm brewing in her eyes. The intensity of the moment shifted dramatically. Maya's heart raced as she caught Emma's gaze, her poised composure teetering. Would this unexpected interruption help lift her ideas or send them crashing into the ground? She steeled herself for a direct confrontation, aware that every word exchanged from then on could determine if she would ascend to new heights or descend into a pit of skepticism. Maya inhaled, knowing the real test of her conviction was about to begin.
As Maya stood before the audience of decision-makers, the sudden entrance of Emma filled the air with tension. Maya could feel the weight of her presence, but instead of succumbing to fear, she embraced the challenge. This was an opportunity to not only present her ideas, but to stand firm against doubt personified. Maya's voice rang with determination as she resumed her presentation. She articulated a vision of an ethics committee rooted in authenticity, transparency, and community engagement. Our journey over the past few months has revealed the importance of addressing the ethical challenges that threaten the integrity of our work, she stated, allowing her gaze to catch Emma's. We have the chance to redefine our approach and rebuild the trust that is so essential in our field. Emma crossed her arms, her expression a mixture of scrutiny and contemplation. As Maya continued to delineate the steps for establishing accountability, the tension in the room shifted subtly. Maya's ability to present her case was fortified by her encounters with her colleagues. She had brought their insights into the fold, weaving one cohesive narrative that resonated not just with her ambitions, but with the collective needs of her team. Near the conclusion of her presentation, Maya took a deep breath, consciously transitioning to the most challenging part of her argument, the core principles of integrity. We must be willing to face not only external pressures, but also the inner turmoil that sometimes tempts us towards complacency. An ethics committee can serve as our guiding light when facing difficult decisions. It's about collective courage and mutual accountability. The audience leaned in, some nodding in acknowledgement. Maya felt a swell of confidence propelling her, yet Emma's skeptical glare reminded her that not everyone was on board. Then, as if anticipating a confrontation, Maya directly addressed Emma. "I know you have reservations about our capacity for change," she began, her heart racing but her voice calm. "But isn't our past a reflection of our present choices? By forming this committee, we have a chance to take ownership of our integrity and ensure that we're making thoughtful, ethical decisions in our work. Your perspective matters, and together we can cultivate a culture of accountability that protects us all." Emma met her gaze, a flicker of surprise playing across her features. In that moment, Maya realized that her call for collaboration had begun to resonate. After a beat of silence, Maya pushed forward, eager to cement the idea that they could truly work through their difference of opinions. "We're not just implementing a new policy, we're crafting a legacy of ethical greatness. With every decision we make, we define who we are." The applause that erupted from the audience was unexpected, but in it, Maya found validation.
As the higher-ups began to discuss the implications of her proposal with newfound interest, she caught Emma's eye once more, and this time the expression was different.
there was a glimmer of respect. After the meeting concluded, Maya stood at the front, heart racing from the mixture of adrenaline and triumph. She had proven her capability, and though she faced further challenges ahead, she had taken significant steps toward achieving her goal. This wasn't merely captivating an audience. It was about establishing herself as a leader who stood for accountability and integrity. In the following days, the proposal transcended her expectations. The leadership team decided to initiate the Ethics Committee pilot program, responsive to Maya's data-driven approach and unwavering determination. Her idea would begin to shape company culture, empowering others to engage in conversations about the ethical responsibilities that defined their work. Maya's resolve solidified with each passing interaction. Where there had been skepticism, now lay openness. Where competitors had existed, now stood collaboration. Conversations around the office reflected a new energy, a commitment to embracing systemic change. As Maya looked around the facility, she felt a profound satisfaction settling within her. She had navigated doubt, confronted skepticism, and emerged stronger. More than a mere transformation of her workplace, Maya had transformed herself. She embodied the perseverance necessary to advocate for her vision of ethical accountability. Her path had forged resilience, and she was no longer just an intern. She was an emerging leader ready to challenge the status quo. The ultimate satisfaction lay not only in the acceptance of her initiative, but also in the discovery of her own strength. Ironically, the very obstacles she had feared had become her greatest teachers, guiding her to a place of competence and self-assurance. Maya had accomplished what she had set out to do. She owned her narrative, forging a commitment to ethics that echoed beyond the confines of her workplace and offered her colleagues a glimpse into the importance of integrity. As she took a moment to reflect on her journey, she recognized that every step had contributed to a larger personal achievement, the realization that her voice mattered. She had championed change and inspired others along the way. This was only the beginning. Her story would continue to unfold as she embraced her role as an advocate for transformation. The time for real change had arrived, and now it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to keep the momentum going and witness more transformative stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and amplify these stories because they deserve to be shared. Comment below with your thoughts on Maya's journey and what you think will happen next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion.
Don't wait even one more second. Join the community that believes in personal overcoming stories today.